Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. I hope you guys are all having a fantastic Monday. Today we are setting up an adult Crested Gecko enclosure for less than $20. It's been about 3 years since I made a video like this, and I have a lot of new tips and tricks to make the best possible Crested Gecko enclosure, and it just happens to be a very nice budget build too. This is what I do for my adult Crested Geckos, and I think it works out really great, and I just wanted to give you guys some of the tips and tricks I use when I make my enclosures. And you can also see I got quite a bit of stuff here, but all this stuff, it should cost you less than $20 to set it up. So we'll talk a little bit about the prices at the end and how you can do it. But first, we got to set up the tank. So the first thing you got to do is obviously pick out a tub. You can see that I have two different size tubs here. The one on the left right here is a 50 quart tub, and then the one on the right is a 64 quart. Don't mind all the garbage in it. I just needed somewhere to put all my extra car stuff. But you can see these are quite big. Here's a comparison to my hand here. And you can see that the 50 quart tub is the same size as the 64. The 64 is just about 2 inches taller or so, and that's what makes up the extra quarts. You can see that they have the same footprint other than that. It's just one's a little taller. Now one thing to keep in mind is the latches on these tubs. You can see the 50 quart here doesn't have a latch at all versus a 64 quart, which has a really nice latch like this. And this is very important, or at least I think it is, making sure your gecko is secure and it's not going to get out. And I accidentally bought these 50 quart tubs, and I poked holes in a bunch of them before I even realized they're 50 quarts, because at the time I didn't even know. They look almost identical to the 64s. They're just a little bit shorter. So now I'm stuck with a bunch of these 50s. Luckily I didn't poke holes in this one yet, but I couldn't return them, so I am using a couple of them, but I would prefer ones that have a latch if possible. But the first thing we're going to need is some sort of substrate. So obviously I'm going to be just using paper towel. This is what's easiest for me. However, if you were setting up like a terrarium, you might want to use some sort of bioactive substrate, something you could grow plants in, something that would be good for isopods. For this setup, keeping it simple, we're using paper towel. You can see a paper towel, 3 half sheets will almost fit the entire bottom. There is about a 2-inch gap on the side, so you may want to lay another sheet down, but for this setup, I will not. But the next thing we're going to need is some sort of structure in our tank. I have 3 things of structure here. So I got pool noodle, stick, and then the PVC pipe. The first thing we'll start off with is the pool noodle. You can see this is just your average pool noodle. I cut it. It's not cut in half, but the bad thing about this pool noodle is that it's so very light. It's kind of flimsy. When I put it in here, if I were to put it diagonally like this, it would leave the holes exposed on either end, which we know is obviously not good. Because the geckos can get stuck inside of there. You can see the little hole like this. So you would need some way to plug off the hole and make sure that your geckos cannot get inside of there. Now, the solution to this is the half noodle right here. But what I've come to realize over the last couple of months of using these half noodles is they suck. When you put them in the tank like this, like across, the geckos are so heavy that the noodles fall down, and then they just end up laying on the bottom of the enclosure, because they're too flimsy since they're cut in half. When they were solid in the circle, they stayed, but now they're just too flimsy and they're no good. So I've been throwing a lot of these away lately. They get dirty. I just toss them because they don't really work too well. No matter how you put them, they're just too flimsy. So these suck, and I'm kind of getting tired of using these. But moving on, we also have our next option for structure, which is our good old-fashioned wood stick. This is a stick I picked off the beach, took it home, baked it, make sure you killed everything. Sanded the end, cut it actually so that it was to size, not for this 50 quart, but for a juvenile's tank. And you can see here, if I can get it to focus, that it's nice and sanded. And this is actually really good because it is sturdy. Obviously your gecko is not going to make it fall down. It's a stick. So it works really nice. It looks really good. And if you have good access to sticks wherever you may live, I just happen to live by the beach, so it's very nice. I can get really nice wash sticks like this with no bark or anything on them. Can take them home and bake them. The only con to using sticks is that they get stained, and I can show you here if I can find one, that there is when they spill food or they poop on it, it'll get a little stain on it. You can see right here, there's a little stain. There's no way to really get this off unless you were to sand it, and that's really annoying. So after a while they get super dirty with these stains on them from poop or food or whatever, and there's really no good way to clean them. You can wipe the hard debris off the surface, but you can't really get the stain off, and that's kind of unfortunate. So that's the one con I've noticed to using sticks, and not everybody has access to them. Now the final thing you could use for structure is PVC pipe, just like this one. Now I have these already cut to size, and this is something I've been trying out for the last month or so. And so far, it seems great. I know a lot of other people use it, and it seems to work really well. It's sturdy, it's sanitary, and it's very easy to clean. It doesn't stain if they spill the food on it or if they poop on it. And it does look not as good as the sticks or maybe the pool noodles, because the pool noodles are at least very colorful. But I do have to say that I like the way the PVC does look in the plastic tubs, especially if you have a couple of them. It's very sturdy, very clean, and you can basically buy as much as you want from your local hardware store as long as you have some way to cut it. You can cut it with a handsaw if you really had to, but if you do have power tools, this does make it easier. However, you do not need them. You can cut them with like a little hacksaw or whatever you want. And then you can get the little caps and put them on the end, so it doesn't necessarily have to be a perfect cut either, because the caps will be hiding it anyway. But next up, we gotta put some way to have a little bit of cover in the tank, and for this I like to use all disposables. You can see here I got a paper towel roll. These work really good, and you may be wondering about the hole on the inside, but the hole on the inside is much bigger than like this pool noodle right here. I'll show you that the hole on the pool noodle is much smaller and would be a lot easier to get stuck in. I've never had a gecko get stuck in a paper towel tube, so I think those are definitely a good option. So we're going to go ahead and we'll put a couple of those inside of our tank. I like to use them just because they're easy. If they get dirty, you can just throw them away. And the geckos love to hide in them because they're small and they're tight, but not too tight, and they're also dark. So I think the geckos really like those. I love using them. And the next thing we got is our egg crate. These also work really good. Poop collectors. If you put these, the geckos like to hide on them. They'll hide kind of like almost in them, you know, laying in the little trays and stuff. And they collect poop if you have them on the bottom, so that's really nice too. Once again, it's a disposable thing, so if it gets dirty, you can just toss it. And I would assume most of you guys eat eggs, so you should be getting these fairly regularly. Now, I happen to get the cardboard ones like this, but if you happen to get the styrofoam ones, those are okay too. They are a little bit more flimsy though. They're a little bit lighter, obviously, because they're just styrofoam. So if you're standing them up like I am here, just be a little bit more careful. Make sure they're leaning on something. I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but just something to keep on the lookout for. So you can see I got some egg crates in here now. We got our paper towel rolls. Now I also have these little purple flats. Now I have to cut these, but these actually hold apples. I get them at my work, and they hold apples, so they're food safe. And you might be wondering if the purple leaks out. It does not when it gets wet, so that's really nice too. It's the same material that the egg cartons are made out of, and I really like using these because they're at least a little bit more colorful. It adds a little color to the tank, because right now you can see it's just gray and brown and eh. And I mean, it doesn't really matter. The geckos don't care, but it's just nice to have something that looks a little bit better. I realize not everybody has access to those, but the egg crates are the same thing, and they still work great. So you can see we got a bunch of places to hide now. We got some sticks to crawl on, which is the most important part. If you wanted to add another 1 or 2 pieces of PVC, that might be good. Geckos love the sticks to climb on, and that is the most important part of your structure in your tank. The egg crates are probably second as places to hide. Now, the next thing we can add is some little plants. Now, these are good. On top of the egg crates, the geckos will lay on top of the egg crates and hide in the plants. We have 2 options for plants, though. We have these suction cup ones like this, where I could stick it to the side of the tank. Or we have these little fake vines where you can just lay them, you know, however you want, kind of twist them around. Now, the suction cup plants are a lot more sturdy than the little vines are. Your geckos can actually crawl up inside of the plants, but the vines are much cheaper. I bought about like 75 feet of these vines for about $15 on Amazon. And I mean, when they get dirty, you can just toss them because they're so cheap. You can just cut a new string, throw the whole dirty string away, and you don't got to clean them, versus the suction cup plants you do have to clean because they're about $5 a piece. So it's really up to you. You can see I got some vines here, and I guess we'll put a suction cup plant in here too. Why not? I don't usually stick them to the sides because they end up falling off anyway, but you can try if you'd like. It's really up to you how you want to do this. Well, that's going to about do it for our tub setup video. I just wanted to quickly talk about the prices so you know how much this cost me to set up. Now, the tub that we used, the 50 quart to 64 quart, either of those tubs are about $9 at Walmart. The PVC pipe and the end caps ran me about $4, and I did have a lot of extra PVC pipe left over. Plants, now this one's a little bit funny, but the actual piece of vine we used was about less than $1, but you do have to buy a lot of vine in a pack, so that's about $15 for the whole pack of vines, but the actual section of vines we used was less than $1 worth. you will have a lot of extra vines left over for in the future. So if your vines get dirty, you can just throw them out and cut a new piece. So that is really nice, and that's just something to keep in mind. If you want to add a suction cup plant, it's about an extra $5. So we'll just call it $6 for all the plants together, assuming that you know you're going to have a lot of extra vines. And then the egg cartons and the paper towel rolls, I'm pretty sure 90% of people eat eggs and use paper toweling, so those should be free. That's going to about do it for this video. Our total was $19. Obviously, if you want to add anything else to your tank, like, you know, the suction cup sticks or maybe a feeding ledge, it's going to cost you a little bit more. But in general, we're still talking about a tub setup that's less than, you know, say $40, which is really good. And obviously, this would be for more of an adult crested gecko. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If this was helpful, please drop a like on the video. Leave a comment down below. Is there anything I could have done better or added to the tank? But anyway, thank you so much, and I hope to see you in my next video.